All right. Good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you here at Centaur's webinar series for teacher. This is our 218th of the entire series, so it's great having all of you here. So today we have Ms. Gilda Oliver, who is a social studies teacher all the way from Philippines. She's a junior high school. She's from junior high school, a prefect for discipline at University of Niba Cacares, Naga City, Philippines. She's an advocate for a positive discipline and a practitioner for child protection. A very warm welcome, ma'am.
Yes, Paul.
Yeah.
Good
So,
evening, everyone. Happy to be here.
excellent. Before we begin the session, I just want to inform all of our participants and attendees over here that we have prepared so much content from Ms. Gilda, as well as like we have a feedback form that will be circulating at the end of the session, along with the participation certificate. So please do engage at the end of the session. Feel free to give your question and answers throughout the session. And what can I say? Let's begin the session with Ms. Gilda presenting implementing positive discipline and child protection in the school. Over to you, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. Hope you're doing all fine. I'm happy to be here to share how is positive discipline and child protection is being implemented in school as we have experienced in our very own school, the University of Nueva Cáceres from the Philippines. I am from the junior high school department in our school, and I am in the lead person in the implementation of child protection and positive discipline. Hope I would be able to share my thoughts and my experience to everyone, especially that child protection and positive discipline is one of the emerging trends in the educational setting. Most teachers are finding it quite hard or are struggling to deal with it. So, without too much ado, I'd like to begin my presentation, my discussion with you on the implementation of child protection and positive discipline in school. There are miracles and glory in every child, and our glory as educator lies in empowering them, for them to flourish. So, when we speak of child protection, we are confronted with every learner's right to education, freedom from fear. And with this, we have a challenge. How are we going to protect the child and have this education free from fear? We have to take note and uphold positive discipline as a principle because as duty bearer in schools, we are duty bound to give quality, inclusive, and safe education. So that is a very tough job, isn't it? So we teachers are facing the reality. What's the reality of the situation? The reality of the situation is that most of our school children are experiencing peer-to-peer violence in and around school. So how do we go about it? How do we deal with it? While they are in their educational journey, they are experiencing peer violence. And 1 out of 3 are experiencing bullying, if not physical fights. So how are they going to go about the journey of their education if they are experiencing all of this? And on the national level, if the country where they live does not have any law protecting them from corporal punishment, especially in school. So that is our challenge. Challenge to teachers on how are we going to uphold child protection and positive discipline and uphold the right of every child, freedom from fear, education, right to education, freedom from fear. So UNICEF had presented to us several ways to deal with the problem or the challenge. Based from the building block of positive discipline, we have to provide structure. And in structure, we have to look into the two P, people and policy. On policy, let us focus on developing code of conduct. In school, most of educational institutions have their code of conduct, and this would safeguard safety of learners. But does our code of conduct provides safety for our learners? That is the question. Does the country that we live in specifically or expressly prohibiting corporal punishment and other forms of violence? That is another question. Is our school have a safe, confidential reporting mechanism? Do we provide it to our students? That is on the policy side. On the other hand, on people's side, strengthening the people's side of the structure of positive discipline, we have to train teachers and school staff on positive discipline, classroom management, and peaceful resolution. These are the things that people in school, administrator, and personnel as well, have to get in touch, have to focus,
Excuse me, Gilda ma'am.
and then
Excuse me, Gilda ma'am. Sorry to interrupt you during the session. Ma'am, a lot of like background noise, ma'am. Dog is barking a lot. Many of our audience are not able to hear your voice.
okay. Uh, yeah. Is it?
Ma'am,
There are
dog
really
is
dogs
barking behind.
barking.
So a lot of noise is there, ma'am.
Yeah. A moment, ma'am. A moment. In our neighborhood, there are a lot of dogs
Okay.
for a while. For a while, ma'am. I just have to check the door.
Yeah, sure, ma'am.
Daddy. Okay, sorry for the disturbance of the dogs in the neighborhood. Is my audio still clear to everyone? Am I audible to
Yes,
everyone?
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Can I
You can
proceed
continue, ma'am.
now? Okay. As I was saying, we have to strengthen the capacity of teachers and school staff by providing them trainings on positive discipline, classroom management, and peaceful conflict resolution. And in so doing, we are able to develop among the school personnel, together with the students, in developing life skills, social and emotional, that would be becoming them resilient. And the society is having that protective capacity of protecting them and the youth. Okay, so that's the two response according to UNICEF's suggestions and recommendations that schools should look into, not just on the policy, but as well as with people. Because positive discipline building blocks says that it has to be providing them a concrete structure, giving them information on how they go about implementation of positive discipline and child protection. So allow me to share our best practices following the recommendation of UNICEF. In our school, we started with revisiting our code of conduct. We try to encourage participation of stakeholders. Thus, can I ask the audience if your school has a definite code of conduct that is being implemented? Can the participants comment on the chat box if they have code of conducts in their schools and it's being implemented? Is there any responses? Could I see any responses? Do we have code of conduct in our school? If we don't have, then that is where we should start in order to start implementing child protection and positive discipline. But if we already have, but we have to revisit it every end of the year, we have to revisit, revise, modify it to address recent concerns of learners. Just like what we do, we have encouraged participation of stakeholders. We have this committee which is composed of representative from among the students, representative from the teaching staff, representative from the parents through the PTA organization. We also have invited a guidance counselor. The committee is being headed by the school head, and then the prefect of discipline or the guidance counselor being the vice chair. And then we also invite a community representative in the person of the barangay council chair on the protection of children. In this way, with this well-represented committee, we are able to see different perspectives, no? So it is highly encouraged that committee that deals with children in school, which was formerly called, some schools called it Committee on Discipline. But in our country, Philippines, the Department of Education had renamed the Committee on Discipline to be the Child Protection Committee. And that is the composition of the committee that looks into the concern of students. Okay, so that is participation of stakeholders is highly encouraged, and that in the handbook or in the code of conduct, there must be an expressly adoption of the principles of child protection and positive discipline. There is in the preliminary article that says that the school abhors corporal punishment and that it promotes positive discipline and non-violent mode of disciplining children. Something to that sort, just like what we did in our school. And then the thing that we will have to look into in the code of conduct is we have to look into the structure. If you have the committee assigned to address the concerns of children or learners, then we must provide a structure. How are they going to report if there are complaints? How are they going to report if they witness incidents of violence? peer to peer or teacher to student or parent to student or guest to student, something of this sort. So you have to provide a process flow, reporting flow, so that all concerns is being addressed. They know where to go. They know when to expect the result of their complaint or their report. So that is on the response level. So there must be a turnaround time to address the issue, to address the complaint. And then after addressing the complaint, the turnaround time, investigation would go on. You have to talk to the students involved, you have to talk to the parents, and then trying to explain the provisions of the code of conduct. And then after that, a decision is being rendered by the committee. The committee would have deliberation, uh, looking into the pros and the cons of the case or of the complaint or of the report. And then after that, you have to monitor if the violator or the offender had really changed after undergoing the intervention. It would be the task of the guidance counselor or the guidance and counseling department to provide intervention to those who have violated or who have infractions of the code of conduct. And then if risk comes to risk, like it becomes repetitive, they keep on repeating the same mistake or every other mistake, then we have to provide referral. If our school does not have guidance counselor or we don't have an intervention program to address things like this, probably you could connect with institution that provide services uh, like counseling, therapy, no? You have to have this referral system in the school. So that is the first part that we have done in our school. Then the secondly, with the approval of our school head, we come up with a program or plan of activities both for teachers and for students. That is child protection laws, positive discipline principles, classroom management tips. No? Okay, so these are the things that is included in the program for teachers and then students. These are the two things that we have underwent based from the recommendation of UNICEF on how to respond to the reality or the situation of our school children nowadays. Okay? And then so that we are guided, no? So that we are guided by the things that we are doing. It's that not we just come up with our code of conduct and then we come up with the plan of activities or program of activities. We also have to come up with a plan by which it is conforming to the standards of positive discipline. We came across this model of CHAD-C and MAC-VT, no? Model, which provides 6 standards. So these standards is the guide of school in trying to come up with a 3-year plan so that you are able to address strengthening the policy as well as strengthening the people as recommended by UNICEF. So the first standard is the school is explicit about respect and dignity for every member of the school. That means the school philosophy, the vision or the mission of the school is explicit about respect and dignity for every member. So that is very important. So that is one step, one standard that we have to look into. The second standard is the school recognizes that learning when the school has a simultaneous focus on school climate and academic instruction. Um, of course, study shows, diba? Study shows that when misbehavior is rampant or if a child is behaving in school, most likely he would be performing low academically. That is usually the case. If the child is usually absent, if the child is involved in so many violations in school, most likely he is poor academically. So, to address that, the school should also provide a hand in hand coordination of the academic affairs as well as the student discipline office so that those who have infractions of the code of conduct would be helped, their academic would not be prejudiced if ever they would be given several, say for example, sanctions. Because if a student is already performing low academically, and then you would be giving them suspension or service record, no? Uh, Usually in our school, we don't suspend. We just assign them to sort of a service to offices, to laboratories, so that they would be able to develop life skills, how to deal with people, how to how to receive complaints, how to answer questions in the office. So that is what we do in our school. So academic affairs should work hand in hand with the student discipline office so that misbehaving students would not perform poorly academically. The third standard that um, Chad C. and MacVitie had introduced is that the school should have a continuous improvement of individual actions and system. How do we go about it? It is realized when we use data in making decisions. Like, it is a great help in our school that the records of violation of students is being made as a basis for our decision in trying to come up with a program of activities, trying to deal with a program of remediation along with the academic instruction. So it was realized because it is based on the data that we have in our school. How many are performing law because of violations? How many are um, coming to school late that is affecting their academic performances? So with this, we are able to make decisions, policies, through policy that we make. We are able to address these issues. And second issue would be evaluation and reflection. It means that on every activity that we have in school, there must be a post evaluation, or the participants there would be given some sort of a reflection so that organizers or the school administration would be able to see what are the flaws, what are the strengths and weaknesses, so that we could work on with the weaknesses or the flaws and then strengthen on the weaknesses. On the strength. We have to enhance more on the strength and then work on the weaknesses. We could not do that if we do not have an evaluation or a reflection every after student activity. Be it campus-wide, be it department-wide, or area or class. Evaluation and reflection is very important so that we would be able to address the issue right there and there. Okay, so that's the third standard presented by Chadsey and MacVitie. The fourth standard speaks of putting theory into practice. Since the committee is being headed by the school head, spearheaded by the school principal or whatever position you have in your school. Um, it should be that the principal or the school leadership is open into putting theory into practice. Like in our case, our school head would usually have this in-service training for teachers every school opening, mid mid-school and end quarter training for teachers on positive discipline, tips on classroom management, um, updating of related child protection laws. So that is putting theory into practice. That means it is not just the theory that we adopt in our policy, but we put it into practice. So it is included in the program. Just like what I have presented to you in the previous slide, that there are only two that we have focused on: the policy, the code of conduct, and the program of activities, both for teachers and for students. So this is aligned with the fourth standard in the CHAD-CMAC-VT model, putting theory into practice. I hope I am coming in clear and not too fast. If you have questions, probably you could just type in the chat box so that I could address it. Okay. Moving on to the fifth standard, discipline policies and procedure are clear and well understood by all members of the community. How do we go about this? In our case, we do this by conducting orientation sessions. We have orientation for teachers, orientation for students, orientations for parents, and even for guests and visitors. If there is a campus-wide activity, we would usually uh, project in our program or include in our program the policies, the discipline policies and procedures, so that all members that comes into our school are well aware of the fact that we are promoting positive discipline and that we abhor corporal punishment and violence in our school. So that is the fifth standard. The sixth standard speaks of providing resources. So it is not just enough that it is reflected in the philosophy, in the VMO of the school. It is not just enough that we have this program for teachers and students, and it is not just enough that we provide them strengthening the policy, no, but the school administration should provide resources to support the intended goals. A school might have a program, but it could not be realized because there is no budget. There is no allotted resources for it to be put into practice. That is, this is in support of putting theory into practice. So theory could never be put into practice if there is no provision for its realization. And that is very true. Money is the lifeblood of any program. However good, however great your program is, it would never be realized if there is no budget for its implementation. So that's the sixth. And if you are going to ask how do we go about it, I would like to share the 3-year program that we have in our school. On every standards we were able to accomplish it. So if our school was able to accomplish it, I know your school can also accomplish it. So it's just simple. You only have collaboration, you only have commitment, you only have to demand open mindedness of everyone in the school or in the community so that we would be able to help and realize the educational journey of school children, freedom from fear, and that we are able to provide quality education, inclusive education, and a safe education for all. Okay? I hope I was able to lay my message across. And if ever there are clarifications, I would be open to answer your clarifications or your questions. Harsha, are there questions on the chat
Ma'am,
box?
um, yeah, ma'am, if you can just share that last previous slides, ma'am, 3 year institutionalized this one, ma'am.
You're coming in
If you can
choppy,
be there
Harsha?
on, ma'am, if you can just share the previous slides, ma'am, 3 year institutionalized slides, ma'am, so that our teachers are asking for that, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Just be there for
Okay, sige.
on that for 5 or 10 minutes, ma'am, so that if they have any queries or anything, they'll just come back. Yeah.
Okay, no. Mm. Okay.
You
Noted,
can
Harsha.
brief them, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah,
The three
you
year
can just brief them,
ins-
ma'am. Yeah. First year, first one, first point, second point, just brief them
okay.
about different points, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay. On standard one, you only have to check on the school vision or mission or the philosophy of the school. So first, you have to encourage participation from stakeholders. Like in our case, we revised the VMO and the philosophy. So all stakeholders are well represented so that they are aware, they are engaged in the crafting of the school philosophy, mission, and vision. That would be for the first standard. And then in the coming year, you could just have an orientation or an orientation session with different sectors, teachers, students, and parents. On the second standard, you only have to work with academic affairs and student discipline or the guidance and counseling office. There must be a collaboration of their efforts. Like if this student is reported to the guidance office or to the student discipline office of violation, what is the intervention program for this student so that he would not be left behind in his academics? Or if ever he would be given a sanction by which he would be off to school or off in class, um, what assurance could you give to the parents that they would not be left behind? That is the second standard. Then the third standard would be you have the office of the student discipline office together with the guidance office should keep track of the records. And then from that record, like what is the most common violations committed for this year? Top three most common violations. These top three common violations, how are you going to deal with this so that in the coming years it would lessen? So that is using data for decision making and for crafting policy. And then, for example, you thought of a program or activity for students, but after you tend to let them realize that they have done wrong. But at the end of the activity, they seem not to have some remorse on the bad thing that they have done. That means you are unable to get the purpose of the activity. And how are you going to know if the purpose of the activity is achieved? You have to prepare an evaluation, or you could probably ask the participants to submit a reflection like complete the sentence. I realized that after the activity, I realized that, so they have to complete the sentence. Now that I am here serving this penalty or sanctions, I know that I don't have to do this again, like something like that. So that is on the third standard. On the fourth standard, That is, you have to work with the student discipline office or the guidance office should work with the school leadership so that um, concepts of positive discipline, excuse me, and then child protection is incorporated into the in-service training, incorporated into the program of the school. And then eventually on the next standard, um, allow the school leadership to provide budget for the program. Excuse me. So that is a rundown of the 6 standards of the 3-year institutionalized program on positive discipline. I hope I was able to give you a sort of a bird's eye view on how we did it 3 years back. Did I answer the question, Harsha? Did I get it?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Uh,
ma'am. You can be on the same slide, ma'am, maybe the fifth or the sixth point, so that our audience are able to take, just read through this thing, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. Let it be there, ma'am, so that
Okay.
if there are any
That's
queries or
the
any questions,
fifth,
I'll just read out, ma'am. Yeah,
fifth standard.
yeah.
Okay. Fifth standard means that the activity, the discipline, procedures, and processes and policies are clear and understood by everyone. How are you going to go about this? You could just have conduct orientation sessions, diba? Orientation sessions, and then inviting different sectors like you separate students, teachers, and then parents, because these three sectors have different concerns. So all of these three are concerned with how the discipline procedure, how the discipline policy should be implemented. And by the time it is implemented, they are all aware. So there would be no more questions. There would be no more, let me say, ambiguous questions that would result to a complaint. That I do not know. That was not explained to us, or something of that sort. On the sixth standard, that is the school providing budget for the program because everything would be put to waste if there is no budget. Would that be all right, Harsha? How about the audience?
Yes, ma'am. You can keep the slide like this only, ma'am, for 1 or 2 minutes, so that our audience
Okay,
will read through it, ma'am. Yeah.
okay.
So waiting for the audience to type in the queries, ma'am. We'll give them another 1 or 2 minutes, or maybe 5 minutes, so that they can type in the questions, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
More of appreciation for the session they are giving, ma'am. We'll wait for another 2-3 minutes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. There is a question by Sasi Rekha, ma'am. Can we change the department of a child if he is having a bad environment of brought up? Am I audible to you, ma'am? You want me to
Arsha, you're
repeat the
coming
question?
in choppy. You're coming in choppy.
Yeah.
You're coming in choppy, Harsha.
Am I clear now? Am I audible to you now, ma'am? Hello.
Okay, okay, ma'am. Can you
Yeah. Uh,
kindly
yeah. I'll
repeat the
read the
question,
question.
Harsha?
Yeah,
Because
yeah. I'll repeat the question.
you
Yes.
were
Yes,
choppy.
ma'am. Yeah, yeah. Yes, ma'am. Can we change the department of a child if he is having a bad environment of brought up? It is a
Bad.
question by Sasire Kamal. Yeah.
How's that?
Sasire ma'am.
Is the kind of the part? I don't I'm afraid I don't get the question because you're coming in choppy.
Ma'am, audible and clear to you
Can we
now?
change? Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah.
I
Can we?
unable to see the question. Can we change the
Yeah.
department of a child
Yeah.
if he is having a bad environment of brought up? That's the we could we could help the child change for the better if we would connect to the home environment. That's the essence of connecting with the home. There should be a home school partnership. In our school, we have home visitation program. If a child is absent for so long, the teacher would home visit the child and then try to see the situation and then try to talk and see the environment so that the teacher would know the reason why he is absent for so long. And then when the teacher comes back to school, he would share it to the guidance counselor, to the school principal, or to the discipline officer. And then we try to brainstorm on how are we going to address the concern of the child who had been absent for so long or misbehaving in class very violently or trying to hurt classmates, no? We try to brainstorm how we could help. And that is where the intervention program of the guidance and counseling office comes in. That's how we go about it. Did I answer the question? Were you
Yes, ma'am.
satisfied with?
Definitely. Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
thank
Thank
you.
you for that reply. There is another question, ma'am. How to control very much talkative students in the class while they are continually speaking or talking?
Okay. Um, you could positively address talkative students while you are having your lesson because it also happens to me. I would usually adapt this sort of a technique if I am discussing, for example, in this session, I would just be positive discipline is a process by which teacher, as I discuss, as I explain, and I could see student talking, I would usually include his name or his family name in the course of my discussion so that his attention would be caught. Did mom call me? I usually would insert the name. Like, for example, if I am saying, the sixth standard says, John, the school provides resources necessary to support its intended goals. Is that correct, John? So I would usually insert it and call his attention, but not to the point of embarrassing him. Like, you stop talking. I'm talking. That's not the positive way to deal with a misbehavior. You could think of a way by which you could call their attention, but you are not putting them in an embarrassing situation. That's the essence of positive discipline. Did I answer the question, ma'am?
Uh, yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the reply. Another question is there, ma'am. Is there any relation with the peer helper programs and positive discipline in school by one of our participants?
Okay. There is really a relationship, peer program, peer helper program, and then positive discipline. Because if I may ask, by peer helper, are you referring to helper in the home that assists the child? Because they are included in the, instead of a parents, they could, we call them in the Philippines, we would usually call those non-relative adult assisting the child in school other than their parents, we call them the guardian. So if the child is represented by a guardian in school, the guardian would be the one to represent the parent in activities like attending a positive discipline seminar for parents or positive parenting. There is really a great relationship between these two, because if they would not be involved in the program, they would not know that what they're doing is correct or wrong. They really have to be included and then informed so that they would know the boundaries of their actions and decisions. Would that be all
Yes,
right?
ma'am. Thank you for that reply. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that reply. There is one more question by Shruti, ma'am. What can be done if the
Okay.
students keep on complaining about each other for minor things? And how can we teach them to be good friends in spite of reiterating good values to them?
If the student keep on complaining about each other for minor things, okay, how can we teach them to be good friends in spite of reiterating good values to them? Okay, this is a peer-to-peer relationship. Probably the guidance office could come up with an activity or a program by which peer camaraderie is encouraged. Like in class, I would usually resort to resorting to grouping them the different ways. Like if you are going to have a groupings for one activity, one way to group them probably on the first activity that I would give, I would let them choose your group mates. On the second activity that I would ask them to work on, I would ask them to count from 1 to 5. For example, if I wanted to have 5 groups, in that way, different types of groupings, students are exposed to different persons. They know how to deal, they know how to compromise. They would not be fighting for each other because they have to work on the task given to them. They would be focused on the task given to them instead of looking into minor things that distract them into the task at hand. You could resort to different forms of groupings, uh, group according to sex, group according to your choice, group by counting. So in that way, in a span of a week or two, they would become familiar with each other and they would not be complaining about each other anymore. They are complaining about each other because they are unfamiliar and they're trying to outwit one another. That's the reason why they keep on trying to look into very minor things. That's based from my experience. Would that be all right?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the
Okay.
reply. One more question is there, ma'am.
Parent
Is
complaining about
possessive
minor
nature
things.
good for a child? Yeah.
A possessive nature is not positive, because by, if you are so possessive in disciplining the child, that means you are focused on the child apart, away from the rest of the group. By positive discipline, you are teaching the child to be friends with everyone, to accept everyone in the class. So if you try to um, approach it the possessive way, like uh, you just wanting to be friends with these people and then never mind the others, you are teaching the child to be exclusive, and he would not welcome other people to his circle, and that is not positive. Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you for that reply, ma'am. Uh, yes, ma'am. There are few more questions. What can be done if the students keep on? What can be
Parent
done if the parents
complaining,
keep complaining? Yeah.
parent, minor things the child tell him or her. Um, if the parent is complaining about other children or his child, was it his own child or other child? May I know? May I clarify? Is it
Uh,
his own child or
you,
other
we can get the
child,
clarification for both
another's
of
child?
the this thing, ma'am. Both parties, ma'am. Whether it is his child or other parent's child.
Okay. So if a parent keeps on complaining about his own child, that means he does not know what to do. That is another way of saying to the teacher that I need your help. You help me out because he is complaining about his own child. But if he is complaining about another child, which is a friend or a classmate of his child, that means um, there might be an encounter with his child that makes him complain, the parent complain. So the teacher should investigate on the complaint, but not to the point of encouraging the parent to keep on giving complaints. Because if you send the message to the parent that you are very welcoming about accepting complaints, they would keep on giving you complaints. That's the nature of the parent, okay? So, either way, the teacher should look into what should be done with the nature of the complaint. If the nature of the complaint has something to do with the behavior that affects the class, the behavior that affects the academic performance of the child, then the teacher should look into what should be done. And that could be remedied by talking to the child and to the friend of the child. That is quite a long process, but it helps. Based on my experience, it helps. Okay po?
Thank you for that
Any
reply, ma'am.
other thing?
Yes, ma'am. Few more queries. Another teacher is asking, how can
Okay.
we create a positive environment regarding disability in the classroom for inclusive education?
That's a very good question because the school, as I have told you a while ago in my previous slide, the school is duty bound to give quality, inclusive, and safe education. Okay, this question calls for an inclusive education specifically for those with disability. Um, if the disability is physical, there it should be addressed. Like for example, left-handed, diba? Usually most people are right-handed, and most armchair in school is right-handed. But if there are left-handed, they are somehow not included because they could not write. They are so inconvenient writing on with their left on on the right side of their armrest, no? Like, again, in our school, we have dedicated armchairs for left-handed. That is one structure of the classroom that encourages inclusive education. Left-handed are welcome. And then, for example, another physical disability, the school should have um, alleys for those coming to school in wheelchair, di ba? Also, physical disability, like the doorknobs of the classroom should also be disability friendly, like those with no hand. Rounded hand knobs are discouraged. It should be those with an elongated handle of door handles are encouraged for those with no hands. Those are just example of structures for those with physical disability. But for other disability like vision, like learning disability, we have a lot of resources providing for inclusive education. And then dealing with them if they are mainstream, that's the point, no? If these children with disability are being mainstream to the somehow normal situation, the teacher should know how to handle those with disability without discriminating them. Do not highlight student with disability in your discussion. Do not highlight student with disability in your instruction for activity. So it must be a uniform instruction, uniform activity, so that the child with disability would not feel discriminated upon. Again, it is on a case to case approach. Okay. Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that reply, ma'am. One more, maybe the last query for the day, ma'am. How to deal with the situation whereby the parents are responsible for their children's bad behavior in the school? Uh, because in a rare case, parents do attack teachers for
Okay.
trying to punish a child. Yeah.
That is quite common in environments where um, they interpret corporal punishment strictly to the point of um, attacking the teacher of violating the law on corporal punishment. So how do we go about this? Um, First and foremost, the code of conduct would be a great help. The orientation session would reinforce what is provided in the code of conduct. The activities in school implements the provisions of the code of conduct. So everything in the policy and the people in school are well aware of these policies, so that there would be no complaints about how teachers would deal with their children, and there would be no attacking parents, there would no parents attacking teachers, because parents in the first place are fully aware that there is this provision in the code of conduct on how to deal with misbehavior of children in school. But there are really parents who are aggressive. I, for one, had a lot of experience of aggressive parents coming to school, trying to accuse school or teachers of hurting their children, where in the first place it was their child who caused the problem. Like, for example, the child had been misbehaving in class throughout the discussion of the teacher. So the teacher keeps on calling the attention of the student to pay attention and to stop the misbehavior, like disrupting behavior, and did not did not stop So, of course, teacher as we are, human as we are, we come to a point that our patience run out. And then when our patience would run out, we try to burst our emotions. But we should be very cautious of, we could pour out our emotions. Like, for example, positive discipline would tell us, don't raise your voice, don't raise your brow, emphasize, highlight what is your message. You could have a smiling face, but you have a very stressful instruction. For example, if the student is having some disruptive behavior in class while you are discussing, one way would be just like I have told you. You could include the name in the course of your discussion so that his attention will be called. If not, I would usually call the student having disruptive behavior to discuss the lesson for the class. I would say this in a manner like, um, I think um, Jane has a better idea of explaining this topic. Can we have the floor be given to Jane so that we would all listen to what he has to say? So, in that way, he is given the floor. That is attention seeking. He wanted confirmation. He wanted to call attention. So give him the attention. But he is given the task in class. So in that way, he would never disrupt the class while discussion is ongoing. Also, I have done this and I've encountered students like this. Okay, would that be all right?
Yes, absolutely. Um, So it was quite insightful, I would say that, and like we got a lot of helpful tips from ma'am. So I truly believe that how much quality education is important and it is should be emphasized. At the same time, as you have said before, equally safe education is important, especially in today's world, right? And for me, the major takeaways would be, how a proper structured code of conduct is essential in school, and why the investment of a school on such code of conduct, formulation of such code of conduct is so much important. Next would be your introduction to the 3-year plan of Chatsi McVitie model standards. Like quite insightful journey on that, I should say, ma'am. Like we got to know a lot about the planning and then the steps to be taken, and then your words on the positive discipline in school, the issues on the positive discipline in the school, and why evaluation and reflection play such a great role for a teacher, which is, I would say that it's quite interesting to know from that angle. So I hope, just like me, most of the participants over here would have interacted with Ms. Gilda, has got more insights and knowledge at this session. And if you want to know more about the other sessions, upcoming sessions, please register or log into my center webpage. You'll get more information and you can find this video on the YouTube. I hope you have filled up the survey form. It was already, there was an issue with the major takeaways, with all this knowledge. I thank Ms. Gilda from the bottom of my heart for joining in and providing this amazing session. Thank you so much for joining in, ma'am. Uh,
My
I
delight.
hope I hope to see you again soon, sometime. So, very good night and have a great day. Bye bye.
Thank you so much.